Anywho, this is part of the Anthology series where I just talk about what's on my mind, pretty much whatever I want. This one is related to anime, kind of, sort of, but again, this is my channel, and I'm gonna talk about what I want to talk about. I've spoken about this before, but one of my main points of frustration with like the current iteration of TikTok and social media as a whole is that the amount of people that actually watch anime on here is very small. Now, with that in mind, it is pretty hard to get any value out of most of the new stuff I find. Now, this isn't uncommon for any domain, right? If you're like an advanced hobbyist or professional in any field, what you'll notice very quickly is that most of the content online caps out at about a beginner level. For example, if you're studying like math, physics, or engineering, you're not going to find much online for graduate level topics for the most part. And that's even more apparent on TikTok, where the audience skews younger and the meta is to make short videos. So the college example, right? That's, very basic programming, very basic American history, very basic writing courses like Lit 101. And that stuff is important, right? But none of that helps you learn those topics and none of it makes you smarter. Like, let's be real here. So, where does this leave me, right? So, I've only been making videos for a year, and what I've pretty much come to is that the majority of this stuff is in the range of what I would like to call advanced beginner level. So this is a level in the Dreyfus model of skill acquisition where you're just starting to get your feet wet and expand your skill set and knowledge. And I think that's fine in and of itself, but having that be the majority of anime content we see is probably a net negative. You know, After a while of consuming beginner content, somebody can develop a sense of false knowledge of anime and be stuck in a state of what I like to call unconscious incompetence. In that you've watched 1,000 videos, but they were all on Naruto, Hunter x Hunter, Witch Hat Atelier, Nana, Frieren, and repeat, 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 and then throw in One Piece after you finish it. And you're never really getting anything new. You're never exploring new themes. You're never exploring new stories, but you watch more videos, so you think you are. And it honestly only takes a few minutes to tell where a person is for the most part. The biggest tell for me is their independent exploration of new ideas and new things, right? If you're doing that on your own, you're probably, solidly on your way to improving your competence, exploring new ideas, and trying your best to expand your mind, right? I saw somebody on here bring up the story of Jim and Yopopo from Zatch Bell. That's what I call ball knowledge. But, on the flip side, when I see somebody who is driven by FOMO or trending topics, only talks about popular anime, revels in controversy, I usually do not want to watch more because that's not the wave I'm on right now in my life. For me, I would probably say I fall between the category of competent to maybe slightly proficient when it comes to anime. I'm by no means a professional, and I probably don't have the time to ever develop that level of proficiency because I would honestly have to build an entire second career in parallel to my own, and that's something that I do not want to do at all whatsoever. But for me, when I think about everything I've seen and learned about some of the most enriching experiences that I've had in my life, haven't even been super obscure anime. There's, Legend of the Galactic Heroes. This is something I would ultimately like to make a video on, but if I were to do so, it would have to be 4 or 5 long videos. I would have to spend weeks making sure I properly explain how I feel about this one because it's just so, so, so complex. Then there's Zatch Bell, right? This series was extremely formative for me as a youth. This is probably my favorite manga of all time. It's just that good in terms of battle shonen. Then there's Millennium Actress. I'm not gonna lie, I just watched this, and it's been on my plan to watch list since the Obama administration, and it's one of the coolest films I've ever seen. I'm not gonna lie. And none of the anime that I just named are obscure, they're not rare, they're all well liked, critically acclaimed. Even then, it is somewhat rare that you see any reviews or any analysis of them, which is kind of sad. You know, Once you get to stuff like Berserk High on YouTube and TikTok, you reset and go right back to Naruto Elementary School. So, again, where does this leave me? Honestly, I'm not sure. Part of the reason I sort of stay to myself is because I'm not really trying to go back to the state of anime fandom that I was at when I was 16 years old. Nowadays, you even see adults in that state of fandom where they're just exploring like the base level of anime. They haven't yet ventured off to where they feel comfortable watching things that nobody else is watching, or seasonally, they're not going to watch the ones that nobody else is watching, but those have been some of my favorites. And I'm not gonna lie, for me, when I hear the term LARPer, I honestly do agree with most of this sentiment, as that particular demographic has honestly made the internet unusable for the purpose of enjoying anime as a social activity or a debate or discussion activity. And for those who find it unkind, I can't help but think you just haven't been around enough, haven't interacted with them, luckily, or you're probably just too nice. Either way, I do wish there was a space for us to communicate with people who know a lot, learn from experts, you know, communing with people who are very, very knowledgeable, and have it be a space for people who are more mature in their anime watching, people who want to have polite discussions, learn more, and just absorb knowledge from people who have a lot to say. But in the current iteration of the internet anime space, that is probably never going to exist unless things change a lot. I would really like to be able to experience things and learn things in settings other than, Justin Savakis' documentary, The Anime Business, which is actually a really, really good YouTube series that you probably should watch. But again, this is just me being selfish as a viewer, saying what I want after all these years and what I think would make the community better. It really doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things because this is all Japanese cartoons. So the heat death of the universe is going to come one day, and what I just said about cartoons doesn't matter that much, but it is what it is, bro.